Okay, I believe we are live.
Are we?
So,
we are.
So I think that would have come up on Periscope. Hello, anybody watching? It looks like one person's watching. Two people. I'm just going to go and get the YouTube link. So bear with us.
Great. Hannah, how has your week been? What have you been up to?
Well,
any exciting projects?
I mean, apart from sort of like hiding from kind of what the madness that is going on outside, I did some gardening.
What do you mean? Something going on? Or...
Didn't you know,
just locked inside, I have no idea what's going on.
I've been doing lots of gardening anyway, so you can't see next to me here, but I have all my plants.
Oh, wow. What are they?
These are my cucumbers. These are doing pretty well at the moment, so I'm pretty happy with those. I can't show you the rest of my plants because it's too big to lift up, but I have a little nursery going on the side here, which is very
fantastic.
Nice.
By the way, if anybody's just joining us, we are still chatting. We haven't started yet. We're talking about cucumber plants.
Yeah, well, should we kick things off then? Because I think
go for it. Yeah,
we've got 12 people watching, and yeah, why not? Now's the time as good as any, right?
Why not?
So, yeah, so welcome everybody. If you want to just give yourselves a little introduction, say who you are, I'll hand over to you and what you're about. So if I hand over to our guest to begin with, Hannah, if you want to say hello to everybody and who you are.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Hannah Smith. I live in Bristol. I'm a freelance WordPress developer. And is that cool? Is that enough? Yeah.
More than enough. Perfect.
Awesome.
Elliot will ramble for ages anyway, so it's fine.
True. Rich, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll keep it short and simple. I'm Rich. I help Elliot and Stillman and Ronald organise the WordPress Cheltenham Meetup, which is normally every Wednesday, but here we are. Again, I am a designer, developer, jack of all trades, based in Cheltenham.
Wonderful. And Ronald, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ronald. I also co-host the Cheltenham WordPress Meetup. I work for Your Themes, but now it's all about WordPress and enjoying Hannah's talk. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Brilliant. And Stillman, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Stillman. I normally put the chairs out and make sure the sandwiches are there on time when we're at the Exma. So I look forward to seeing you when we get back there.
Wonderful, brilliant. And also wear cool glasses by night, right?
Indeed.
Great. Okay, so obviously this is a new thing for us. This is our first time, so things are about to go wrong. Hopefully we won't get it too wrong, but if we do, please bear with us, be patient with us, and we'll try and sort of meander our way through this little journey. It's a new first time for me streaming, and I'm sure I speak for everybody else, but let's see how we get on. I would actively encourage you all to make comments if you can through Periscope, we're currently streaming to, and also YouTube. If there are any comments that you want to make about feedback, or whether you can't see something, or looks like there are lots of comments coming through, which are basically people saying hello, which is great. I can see a lot of familiar faces there, which is awesome.
That's so nice, isn't it, to see everyone? Hi, everyone. That's great. I love all the comments.
There we go. I've just popped them on the screen. So anyway, I don't know if anybody can see that, but so yeah, please use the comments, interact as much as you can. That would be great. So obviously, I don't want to dwell on the C word, but this is the reason why we're doing this, because we're in a very weird situation, and there's various things happening in the community at the moment. I think 34SP are working to do a more of a community-driven thing, which is great. But we literally put this together like last weekend. We made the decision to go ahead with the meetup on Friday morning, I think, after having several conversations that were from like Wednesday onwards. Things changed so rapidly, and we just decided actually it's the wrong call. So we decided to get on board with the with some kind of streaming effort just to keep things going, try and keep a bit of normality going. So I'd just like to give a big shout out to Leo Mindell, who basically gave us the kind of, or gave me the tips on how to, there he is, how to kind of use this system, which is really fantastic actually. So thanks for that, Leo. I guess the big question is what plans do we have for the future? I think it's difficult to say. The truth is we don't really know. But for us, we have got speakers lined up for upcoming meetups that will, upcoming months. So we definitely have a platform for them. And for me, there are kind of two reasons to do meetups. Main reasons, obviously, there's lots of little ones, but I think for me, it's important to give users a kind of a place to come and learn from others, and also for speakers to have a platform to educate others on. I know that there's a big social aspect to that which we are really missing out on at the moment, but hopefully, as we go on this journey, we'll kind of find our way a little bit. I don't know. It's all a little bit up in the air, I think. Does anybody have any comments on that, Hannah?
I think the social aspect is a shame. Like I would love to be in a room with everybody this evening, seeing everyone popping up on the comments. I'm just, you're all there, but I'm sad to miss out on that. But I think this is a great opportunity to try something different. I've been quite excited as a speaker to have this opportunity to be online. And, I know that there's people I can see in the comments who I know wouldn't be able to come to Cheltenham normally. So there's an opportunity here as well as something to be a bit sad about, I think. I love that we're trying this out, and this could be a great thing to continue alongside the face-to-face things, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Ronald, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I can't really add anything else to that. That was just beautifully said. These are difficult times, but actually with these difficult times also new opportunities appear, and it seems that we're grabbing that. And I really like to see so many familiar faces, and also just want to second the thanks to Leo for helping lots of other meetups, including ours, to get started with this. Really good.
Yeah, totally agree. Rich, you have anything to add if you want to? You don't have to, by the way.
Not really. I'd just like to say we're not sponsored by DeployBot, but me and Hannah have got the same mugs, incidentally. So, of all the mug choices in the world, we've got the same mug. But yeah.
Genius.
I've got to be honest. It's my favourite mug. I love this colour. I'm sorry.
Give him a little plug. There you go.
Yeah.
Got the same mug of all the mugs. Hey ho.
Oh, that's
I'm
brilliant.
gonna have mine as well. I love it. It's a good mug.
Have you got it as well, Ronald?
No, I've got a slightly faded
okay.
today, but I do have it.
I think I have one in the cupboard, but there you go.
I got mine from the Bristol Word Camp. I don't know if that's where you.
That's where mine came from.
Yeah. That's
My commodity still as well.
Yeah.
Stillman, do you have anything to add to the social aspect and what we're doing online, what we're trying to do?
This is the one way to carry on with the meetups. And as everyone has said, it's much better to meet in person because we get into more interesting conversations face to face. So I look forward to putting the sandwiches out and the chairs when we next meet.
Or the virtual ones.
Or the virtual ones.
Okay, brilliant. So I guess we can kind of wrap that up, and we can really get on with the show, I guess, Hannah, if you're ready to crack on with your talk. We're going to do Hannah's talk. It's kind of going to be the schedule, and then we're going to do a Q&A after the talk is finished. So we're going to just drop backstage and give it to Hannah. So if you do have any questions as Hannah's talking, feel free to interact through the comments. I know at some point there will be some audience participation, so look out for that. And it should be good. So should we drop back then, Hannah? You got your slides ready?
I think we're going to have the equivalent of that moment in a face-to-face meetup where you unplug one thing and plug another in and the projector doesn't work. So if everyone just kind of lift music moments, that would be great whilst they just try and get it all set up.
Okay, I'm going to drop
Over
everybody
to
out.
Ronald.
Yeah, come on, Ronald, sing us a song. Right. Okay, so let's see. I can do this. Oh, that's a fail. That's the last slide. Let's have the beginning. Okay, that looks good. So I've got 3 screens here at home, so I can present to you tonight. I've got one screen which the slides are on, another with my presenter notes, and then you folks are all over on my left. So I'm going to try and look at the camera, which is kind of looking at you. But if I look left or right, that's why. Okay, cool. So I'm really excited to give this talk to you all this evening. This is something I've been learning a lot about in the last year or so. It's really, really interesting topic. So I hope you will all find this interesting, and I hope that there'll be some useful takeaways for you as well. So of course, I'm going to be talking about tips on how to reduce the carbon emissions of your WordPress site. Now, hang on, let me get my clicker working. Yes, clicker's working. Okay. So I've already introduced myself a little bit, so I'll go through this quickly. I'm a freelancer in Bristol. Mainly my day job is as a web developer. WordPress is my sole thing. I've also got a lot of experience in management, so people, projects, processes. Basically, if it begins with a P, I've probably done it. And I do a bit of speaking and writing as well, because I work from home a lot, so it's a good opportunity to get out and about. I was also the co-organizer of the Bristol WordPress Meetup, but I've recently stepped away from that, and I've started the Green Tech Southwest Meetup. I'm in a similar situation to Elliot and the team here, wondering how we're going to continue with those as well. So hopefully I can learn lots from tonight. So what I'm going to cover in this talk. So the talk really gets divided into 2 parts. First up, we have an overview of where carbon emissions are produced when we use the internet. Stroke ICT. So some of you maybe would remember the term ICT. It's a bit more of an old school term. It generally refers to computers and digital stuff. I've got to be honest, I've been a little bit slack in my slides, and I use internet and ICT a little interchangeably. I think broadly, because computers are generally connected to the internet these days, it's more or less safe to switch those 2 terms. But if you see ICT popping up in the slides at all, think internet. Okay, and then the second part, we'll be looking at tools and approaches that WordPressers can use to reduce their emissions. And I'm going to talk a little bit to the developer audience, and I'm going to talk to the content managers audience. I'm just laughing because I just saw Mark's comment saying that he taught ICT. At least someone knows what it means. Nice one, Mark. All right. I think whenever I talk about what something is, I think it's important to talk about what it isn't as well. So what this talk isn't. This talk is not hating on the internet or WordPress in any way. I love the internet. I think the internet's amazing. I think it's very empowering and amazing thing that we have. So just, first up, I am talking about how we can reduce the environmental impact of our websites, but I'm not hating on anything. I think it's great. One of the other things to say is this talk is not going to try and explain climate science. That is definitely more than a half an hour talk. And if you're interested in finding out more about climate science, then that's really, the IPCC website is a really great resource. And the other thing that this talk isn't is statistically exact. So whilst I've been researching this topic, I have realized how tricky it is to find exact numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about why that's difficult in a sec. But I've used the most credible sources that I can find, and they're all credited. But yeah, being statistically exact when you're talking about the carbon emissions of things is actually quite tricky, especially when it comes to digital. So that's what this talk isn't. So let's crack into actually what the talk is and the content of the talk. And I'm going to start off by just giving a brief overview of carbon emissions and how they're produced when we use the internet. For some of you, this might be the first time you've thought about this. For some of you, I think maybe it will be, fairly obvious. We'll see. But your feedback would be great. I'd love to know from you in the comments as to whether this is new stuff to you or you've heard this before. Okay. Okay, so let's just start with some big numbers. All right, so when we talk about the, I'm not sure where I was going with that sentence. Let me start that again. So the internet's total life cycle, the carbon footprint of that is approximately 730 million tons. So using the internet and creating the internet, so this does also include infrastructure and the creation of devices as well as running them. The entire global use of the internet approximately emits 730 million tons of CO2. And so that number is quite large. It's actually, that makes it approximately 1.4% of global carbon emissions, which is quite significant. If you're a bit like me and you're like, okay, well, those are numbers, but I have no idea how to equate those to anything. That number of 730 million tons is roughly on a par with the fuels burned by the aviation industry. So you might hear in the news that using the internet is, or the global use of internet is the same as the aviation industry. That's not quite true. It is roughly equivalent to the fuels burnt by the aviation industry, but it doesn't encompass the entire life cycle. So the creation of aeroplanes and everything that goes on into running them. It's just the fuels burnt, but that's still significant. And another way of kind of putting those numbers into context as well is that if the internet was a country, it would be the 6th biggest polluter. So those are quite significant. And you can see at the bottom of the slides, I've got some links to where I'm getting those sources from. And I will make these slides available on Twitter at the end of this. So you can have a look. It's a PDF and you can click on all the links and find out. So they're quite big numbers and quite a lot of carbon emissions coming from using the internet. And why is that? Again, I've mentioned some of you will probably find this really obvious, but using the internet requires a lot of electricity, and it's electricity that creates the carbon emissions. It's estimated that about 3.6% of global electricity powers devices and internet usage. So that's quite a lot of electricity. And this would be fine, this wouldn't be a problem, but it is a problem because energy production is not emissions free. In fact, there is a carbon intensity associated with power generation or with electricity creation. And in 2018, that was estimated to be about 478 kilograms per kilowatt hour. Now, I'm not going to get into the detail of this here. There's tons and tons of resources I can point you in the direction of if you're interested in learning more about the carbon emissions of power generation and then how that translates into data consumption too. It is quite complicated because it depends where in the world you are as to what your numbers might be, but as a broad number to give you something to work with. So actually, in 2017, we saw that 65% of the world's fuels are still coming, 65% of the world's electricity is still being produced from fossil fuels. 25% is renewables, that's pretty good, and 10% is nuclear. We could get into a long conversation about where nuclear sits, if it's good or bad, but we won't go there for now. But it is an interesting conversation. So we have this issue where electricity generation is dirty and the internet is using lots and lots and lots of that electricity. So that's a kind of an idea of where we are in terms of the overall impact. It's also worthwhile talking through some of the trends and where this stuff is going, because it's not all scary, actually. There's some really good stuff in here. One of the first most important trends that it's worth talking about is that demand and usage for the internet is on the up. And I don't think that that will come as a surprise to absolutely anybody listening. We have more people being connected to the internet. We have more types of devices that can be connected to the internet and more kinds of services. So demand and usage is on the up. I like this diagram. I think this one's really cool. This kind of gives you an idea of how the global IP traffic that's whizzing around the world has grown and how quickly it's grown through that time. So on the slide here, you can see that these abbreviations. So in 1987, it was 2 terabytes. In 1997, it was 60 petabytes. You have a look in the right-hand side, bottom right of the screen, you can see what those figures translate into, what they mean. Because I hadn't heard of those funny sayings before, like a petabyte and an exabyte. They were new to me. So yeah, it's a little chart, translation chart, key down the bottom. So where we are at the moment, oh, and there we go. Sorry, this slide you can see, I'm pointing at the screen. None of you can see me pointing at the screen, can you? This is funny. Okay, 1 zettabyte, as you can see there, has a lot of zeros at the end of it. It's a really, really, really big number. And in 2017, it was estimated that it was 1.1 zettabytes of information flying around. It's predicted by 2022 that that will be 4.8 zettabytes of data every year flying around the internet, which is amazing. So you can see how much demand is growing and how much more stuff we've got flying around. And of course, more stuff means more electricity, potentially. Okay, the other thing I would like to show you about trends is getting a bit more relevant perhaps to what we do as web developers or WordPressers, is I'd like to show you some data now around how the median web page size has grown over time. So this is data pulled from the HTTP archive. I don't know if any of you know the HTTP archive. I love it. There's so much interesting, amazing data in there. I could spend all day looking at it. So I pulled out this particular set of information for you. This shows you how desktop page sizes have grown over time. So from 2014, you can see there that there was 1,192 kilobytes for the average page size. So that when we're talking about page size, we're talking about the file size, the number of kilobytes that are being downloaded in order for you to view that page. So in 2014, it was 1,192. Come to 2019, it's gone up to 1,939. So that's about 1.6 times bigger. So in that 5-year period, internet pages have grown by 1.6 times. And then let's have a look at mobile. Mobile is a similar story, but actually the growth there is even bigger. In 2014, let's look at this screen, it was 668 kilobytes. By 2019, it's grown to 1,745. It's nearly 2.5 times bigger. And you can also see that desktop and mobile are almost the same as well. So that's a really interesting trend, and that's something that's very, very relevant to us, as I said, as WordPressers in this area. But I would like to give you some good news too. Efficiency is also on the up. Hooray! So that's really, really great. And what I mean by that is that whilst we have seen a really big demand, growth in the demand on the internet, what we can see is that the overall electricity being used is flattening out more or less. So although we have, although demand increased, the energy and the carbon footprint didn't grow in proportion. So I kind of see that and I think, wow, okay, that's amazing. You know, that's because data centers have become more efficient, or transmitting information has become more efficient too. And I kind of think, so if we could like get a handle on the demand and start trying to drop the demand down, what could we achieve? You know, maybe we could make a difference here. So to summarize this section, is the internet actually a problem? Is this worth paying attention to? Well, yes and no. I'm sorry. Proper politician's answer. Yes, the world needs to halve overall carbon emissions every decade to keep global temperatures within safe levels, and that's a big job. And so, yes, our sector, working on stuff on the internet, we should be looking to reduce our impact, and that includes us here. We could be doing some stuff to make a difference. Is the internet a problem? Well, no, because actually, if you use the internet, or more specifically ICT, correctly, you have the potential to reduce carbon emissions in other sectors. And in fact, research has shown that ICT is already responsible for identifying reductions of 15% in other sectors overall. So that's quite amazing. So I think this is something we could all be paying, pay a little bit of attention to, but I don't think anybody should be worrying about the internet as a thing, because I think it's a great thing. It does a lot of good stuff. Okay, so moving on, love to hear your comments in the comments section if you have any thoughts on what I'm talking about so far, or if you have any questions. Questions are good when we can get to them at the end. Okay, so moving on then. So the next section I want to start getting into is actually understanding how electricity is being used by your website more specifically. So, good comment, thank you for that. So when we view an internet page, this is roughly what happens. We have a data center which is preparing your data. And even if your data is in a cloud, it's still actually in a data center somewhere. It still physically exists somewhere. And when you request to view an internet page, the data center is responsible for preparing your data. And it's that act of preparing the data that uses the majority of the electricity. Once the data center has prepared your data, it sends it to you over the network. Now, this diagram makes the network look deceptively simple. The network is very, very, very complicated thing to map out. It's made up of switches and routers and masts, and all sorts of things are going on for you to get your data. I've simplified this diagram just to have the two endpoints, basically, so Wi-Fi and wired connections. It's very interesting, actually, that if you plug your laptop or your desktop into a wired connection, you use significantly less electricity than having the data sent to you over Wi-Fi. I think that's a really interesting statistic, and interesting thing to know. It's not a statistic. And also using 3G and 4G use more levels of power too. So mapping the electricity consumption of this particular section of the network is really quite tricky. This is one of the hardest bits to map, actually. But anyway, your data travels to you. It ends up somehow getting to your device. And your device uses energy to present the data to you and allows you to interact with it as well. And of course, we know these days that we have a huge array of devices available to us. We have desktops and laptops, mobile phones, game consoles, TVs, and they all use electricity in varying amounts as well. Like a TV will use loads more electricity than your mobile, for example. So knowing that these three things all use an amount of electricity, I think it's interesting and useful to understand roughly what amount each of those components use in terms of when you're viewing a page. So data centers use roughly 30% of the electricity in that whole end-to-end process. ICT networks use about 28%, so that traveling part, data getting from A to B. And your user devices, so, I don't know what I've done with my phone. If you have a phone or a laptop or whatever, roughly it's accounting for 42% of the electricity being used. So this is the part where I'm hoping for a little bit of audience participation. I discovered a really interesting fact recently that if the ICT sector changed all of those things that I just showed you, those three sections, to all using renewable energy, it could account for some big reductions in the overall carbon footprint of the internet or of ICT. So I was wondering if anybody would like to hazard a guess as to what percentage of carbon we could, of our carbon footprint we could take out if all electricity was consumed by renewable resources. Of all electricity consumed came from renewable resources. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. I'm sure many of you are as well. So I'm just wondering if anyone wants to make some guesses about that. Okay. So we've got 25, 30%. I'll go a bit higher. Mark, interesting, 90%. Okay, 40. Yeah, okay, Mark, 38% from Dave. Brilliant. It's very precise. Love that. Actually, it's 80%. So if everything, well done, Jordan. If all of our infrastructure and all the devices were using renewable energy, we could actually save 80% of our carbon reductions, of our carbon emissions. I don't know about you, but I find that quite an amazing number, because actually just by doing that, that's a huge saving. So switching to renewable energy can make a really big difference. And it's the first piece of advice that I would give anyone who is interested in reducing the carbon emissions of your site. Switch to your hosting company. I'll give you some advice on how to find green hosting companies in a second. Switch your home and office supplier, because as we saw, that actually your devices are using 42% of that electricity. So if you at home are able to switch, and hey, some of us might end up having quite a bit of time on our hands over the next few weeks. So, maybe there's an opportunity to help your family and friends switch as well. Okay. So moving on then, so we've got about 10 minutes left, which is about right. Let's start getting into tools and approaches then of things we can actually do. So if you are completely new to measuring the carbon footprint of your website, the website carbon calculator is a really, really good starting point. It's by no means perfect. As I mentioned, trying to measure this stuff is really, really, really difficult. But if you've never even thought about this before, it's a great place to start. I'd be interested to know if anyone's used it, and if anyone wants to have a little play whilst we're talking, and put in the comments what their websites are coming up as. I think that would be great. I'd love to see what people are coming up with on the tool. So the tool is simple to use. Here's a screenshot of the home page. You just put a URL in, hit calculate, and it will give you some results. So I did the Bristol WordPress site, which I was involved in building, and actually we didn't come up too well. It ranks you, the tool ranks you according to other sites that have been tested. It gives you an idea of the carbon emissions coming from your website, and then it also assesses whether your hosting is running on renewable energy or not. So let's just talk about servers and hosting for a short time. Hosting and servers, as I mentioned, it's brilliant to be using renewable ones if you can. The Green Web Foundation is an amazing resource for understanding what hosts and servers are running sustainably. Check it out. They publish data sets of the providers running on green energy, and that's available as an SQL-Lite open data set. And in fact, the website Carbon Calculator, which is the tool I just showed you, uses their data set to make the assessment of whether your hosting is green or not. For those of you that perhaps run Lighthouse, which is a speed assessment tool, the Green Web Foundation have developed an add-on to Lighthouse, which is called Greenhouse, which can give you an idea of whether your website is running sustainably or not. So yeah, check out Green Web Foundation. They're brilliant, and they're lovely people as well. They're absolutely super. A few tips and ideas for looking at your infrastructure and hosting setup. Make sure you're using at least PHP 7, because it's twice as fast as PHP 5.6 and therefore uses a lot less CPU energy. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I know I should have upgraded all my clients, but I felt very motivated to get on and do it. You can use a CDN, a content delivery network, for delivering information, delivering your media, for example, across different geographical regions. Many of you will be doing that anyway, I'm sure, but there is a carbon emissions perspective to think about why that is such a good thing. And later on, if you want to have a look at the slides, if you don't know what a CDN is, you can get the slides and click on the link there, and it will tell you all about CDNs. And of course, the other thing is make sure you have sensible caching set up, because that will help save energy as well. Okay, I'm going to get into content for the last 5 minutes, or maybe 6 minutes. Okay, so we just had a little look there at the hosting, the data centers side. Going to spend a bit more time now looking at content, because actually, if your content is efficient, your user devices will use less electricity. And again, for me, when I heard that, I was like, well, I know I should do things efficiently and well, but I feel even more motivated when I know that it can reduce carbon emissions as well. So here's some resources that some of you might wish to have a look at. There's a great article that did the rounds, I think it was last autumn, how web content can affect power usage. It's a really geeky piece of work, but the long and short of it is that your device will use a lot more power if it's got JavaScript running, and a lot of JavaScript will make a big difference. So there's something to think about there with reducing the use of JavaScript. And another really nice resource, or a nice takeaway, is a tool called the Website Test Speed. And you can test websites with and without an ad blocker. And the long and short of that is that adverts use a lot more power. So websites running lots of adverts are going to be having bigger carbon emissions. And we know anyway, websites with ads are slower. So if we're getting started with being efficient, sorry, I'm laughing at the comments. Yeah, that's a good one. I couldn't, yes, I'm not going to go there, but yes. So if we're getting started with being more efficient, the speed of page load is a useful metric, but it's not the only metric for us to be thinking about, because you can serve bloated content quickly. So to really reduce your emissions, you're really looking to only serve the bytes of data that matter. So when I'm talking about efficiency, I'm talking about ways of reducing the bytes of data. And yeah, we can borrow loads of great ideas from the web performance community. It's a great starting point, and we don't need heaps of more tools. There's actually lots of great tools out there already we can use. Google page speed scores, for example, give us really helpful clues. And I highly recommend using those as that or Lighthouse as a way of figuring out what you can do. Okay, so I'd like to get even a little bit deeper again into websites, and I'd like to show you some data which breaks down the average page that you view on a mobile phone and shows you what content type is making up the file size. It's easier to show you the picture because trying to explain it with words just doesn't work. So this is again data from the HTTP archive, and what we can see here is that video makes up 42%, images 35%, JavaScript 15%, fonts 4%, CSS 3%, and HTML 1%. So from looking at that chart, the biggest wins are around streamlining your media. So I'm just going to hop back. We have 42% of this video and 35% is images. So if you want to get started somewhere, that's a great place, looking at your media. So your video and images. And the first thing you can do, you don't have to do anything particularly clever here, but it's just make sure that your media content is being transferred on demand. So images should be lazy loaded, and oh, yeah, that's right. And don't autoplay your videos. And there's a link down the bottom here. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, you can have a look at this Google Developers article, which explains what lazy loading is. And it's very easy to install WordPress plugins to lazy load images. I think the one that I tend to use most for that is, I can't say it, Auto-Optimize, which is a plugin I really like. Okay, so I'm going to go through this bit fairly fast because I'm aware I've almost used up all my time. So I wanted just to talk through a couple of things about images, because I don't know about you, I don't have much video on most of the sites that I build, but there's always images, so it feels like a really great place to start. It's interesting when you have this conversation with people that a lot of developers will be like, oh, no, it's for the content people. They need to make sure that they're getting their images right. And the content people are like, oh, can't the developers just put some magic things on the server and just sort my images out? And in my experience, actually, both sides need to be responsible about caring for the images. There's some stuff that content editors need to think about and some stuff that developers need to think about. So if you're a content creator, here's some tips and things to be thinking about before you upload an image. Use the right image for the right thing. Resize your images to the right dimensions. Reduce the quality of JPEGs if you can, and that will often have no visible change to the eye. And if possible, clean out unneeded data. That last point I ummed and ahed, does that go here or for content editors, for developers? So I put if possible. So there's lots and lots of different image types out there, but largely what I see is most content editors are adding JPEGs. That seems to be the common thing. And there's some amazing things that you can do to reduce the quality and the dimensions of your JPEG, and the impact it has on the file size is amazing. So let's just have a look through a quick example. This is my dog Lily. She features in every presentation I do. I always slip her in somewhere. And I took her, this is her in my office, on my camera. It was a massive image. You can see the dimensions down there in the bottom right, 3,800 odd pixels. And the file size was 2.9 megabytes. Let's imagine that I want to use the same picture in a space that's 1,400 pixels. Just by reducing the dimensions to the right size, excuse me, I think we've reduced the file size by about a third. We've reduced, it's 3 times smaller. That's what I'm trying to say, 716 kilobytes. So just resizing the image before I've uploaded it, I've saved all that file size. By reducing the quality down to 70%, we can cut it down to 231 kilobytes to 45%, and we're down at 114 kilobytes to 10%. We're down to 54 kilobytes, and to 3%, we're down to 44 kilobytes. Now, I don't know if you can see the degradation in the quality of those images on your screens. I'm not sure if that would have translated across here. But if you look at the slide pack, you can definitely see the difference. So it's a remarkable difference just by resizing your images and compressing their quality down makes a huge difference. Removing pointless bytes of data. I'm going to skip over that because we're running out of time. I'm just going to move into image love for developers. So developers, once the image is uploaded, here's some things that we can and we should definitely be getting our servers to do. We can compress and remove pointless bytes of data. We can serve images responsively. There's great HTML tags that we can make use of. And we can use the inbuilt WordPress image thumbnail sizes. I haven't gone into the thumbnail sizes here, so that I've linked to some more content about it. Here's a list of plugins that you can use for the removing pointless bytes of data stuff, and to some degree compressions too. So Short Pixel I really like, Smush I use. I discovered WP Optimize recently can actually change the quality of your JPEGs as well. And there's lots more out there. So if you're a developer building themes and you haven't heard of the image source set or the picture tag, definitely check them out. Data from the HTTP 2019 Almanac suggested that these are really underused tags. Only 20% of pages use source set and 2% make use of picture. Another top tip is make sure that you're adding reminders, help text into the admin area of WordPress to help your users remember what to do and to know the advice that you give them. With the introduction of Gutenberg, changing some of these help text things has become a little more tricky than it used to be, but it is possible and you can definitely do it. Okay, my last couple of slides. So I've gone through that stuff super quick because honestly, 30 minutes is such a short amount of time to talk about this stuff, and there's so much to go at here. But I wanted just to leave a few tips for any of the designers in the room. I mean, we're all designers, no matter what you do. If you're a developer or a content creator, you are a designer of some description. So it's worth just touching on a few points here. So I just got 2 slides on this and then we're done. One of the key things to be thinking about is to create or design so that your users can complete their goal quickly. Don't make them click around what they're looking for. That is a waste of page loads. So actually spending more time thinking about your design and getting it right so users can get to where they want quickly has an environmental impact too, because there's less waste, fewer resources being loaded when they don't need to be. If this kind of excites you and interests you, this topic, there's a set of conferences and resources around sustainable UX. So you can visit sustainableux.com and check that out. And then a couple of other design tips, very specific things, actually to do with sort of layout of content. It's design with fast loading in mind. So ditch the carousels and the sliders. Users don't really like them anyway. They hide the content. And from a performance / carbon emissions point of view, they're a real drain. So try and get rid of those, especially the ones with lots of pictures in them. I advise you to try and use full screen images sparingly. I have massive screens at home, 27-inch screen here. They're really big pictures. You've got to put really big pictures in your websites if they're going to look good on my screen. Auto-playing background videos are bad. Avoid them at all costs, and also think about limiting the number of different fonts you have. Now, these are all tips for being fast, producing fast loading pages. But as I mentioned, there's a real synergy here with reducing your carbon emissions too. Okay, cool. Well, I've trotted through that content. That was a little bit slower than when I practiced it here at home. Well, I am at home, but when I practiced it before tonight. So thanks for sticking with me, and I'm sorry for running over. Just to summarize then, here's the key takeaways. So yes, internet usage is a significant cause of carbon emissions. Serve only the bytes of data that really matter, so look at efficiency. If you are starting with this, do the stuff with the greatest impact first. So look at your hosting and look at your media. And Centrist has made a really good point on the comments here about using a static page delivery system. Yes, absolutely. There's loads of research to show how much more carbon efficient that can make it too. I didn't get a chance to get that into the content tonight, but thank you for raising that. And yeah, I think we should get talking about this. There's lots of easy things we can do here, and I'm amazed at how many people haven't cottoned on to this yet. And when you start thinking about it, it's not a big leap to make. So I've got loads and loads of resources for you to have a look at, kind of things I just didn't get time to squeeze in. More resources here. And here's a few WordPress TV talks as well. If you're interested in this, there's a few more talks that you can have a look at here. So thank you. I'm pretty much done. So Elliot, I'm going to give you an Elliot & Co. a moment there to join me again if you're coming back. And I guess we've got time for some questions now, if anyone is still there.
Hannah, that was really very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it, the talk. Good,
thanks. It's hard. I can't see any of your faces, so I can't tell if anyone's enjoying it or falling asleep. But thanks, Ronald.
No, I was reading lots of comments and watching it on YouTube, but muted, and Periscope. So lots of interaction. So that was great. I have a quick question, if I can come in first. And this is very much something I read in a couple of days ago, that video games, especially those that link to the internet where lots of people interact, are really quite bad for the environment. I know we very much talk about websites, but sometimes I feel a little bit, when your neighbor is way more polluting than you are, and in these small little changes, you feel like, well, what's the point? But I think after today, those little changes actually do really make a difference, and it's like the recycling. You do your bit and make the world a better place. So I'm definitely a lot more motivated by your presentation. Thank you. And that wasn't really a question; that was more of a statement.
Breaking the number one rule. I think it's interesting. You've made a good point there, though. I do often question myself for giving this talk and spending so much time reading and researching this, because I'm kind of thinking, yeah, like maybe there are, other more important things to be going on, or am I just kind of digging around in the weeds? Does this make a difference? But actually, I saw an amazing tweet by Danny Van Kooten, who is the guy that does a Ibericode. So he's made a few plugins, which I use. So one of them is the MailChimp integration for WordPress, which I bet loads of you use, and Cocoa Analytics, which I started using too. And he wrote a tweet, and I can't remember exactly all the numbers, but he managed to take out like a 20 or 30 kilobyte JavaScript package that was loading into MailChimp for WordPress unnecessarily. And because of the number of downloads and people that use it, he just like massively cut down carbon emissions. And that's just one person making one change of a 20K JavaScript file. I'll find the tweet. We can retweet it out because I thought it was really interesting. And so sometimes that made me think, like, actually, maybe my work is seen by more people sometimes than I realize. And those small changes that I'm making, maybe trimming 100, 200 kilobytes off a page, can make a really big difference when you add it up. Anyway, I rambled on and waffled on there. Sorry, Ronald.
Mark is just coming with a really good question. Oh, it's actually on show there. If I could only do one thing to sites I build, what would you recommend?
The one thing is moving the hosting to renewable hosting. That is like the top one thing.
Are there many, sorry to interrupt, are there many green hosts around, and how can you find out what is who are the green hosts? Is there a like an emblem or some logo that you can identify them by?
Well, check out the Green Web Foundation, because they have that's the place. If you go to their website, they have a directory divided up by country of green web hosts, and I've used it to find some. So I now host all my stuff with Crystal Hosting, who are based in the UK, who are very green. I like them; they're nice as well. And there's a couple of others I know that people often recommend. So I think Ross might be on the line. I think Ross often recommends Kualo. But yeah, check out the Green Web Foundation to look at that. So I don't know if I answered Mark's question, because Mark then came in with a second part, didn't he? Considering that he's already doing everything with the media. That's an interesting one. The quick ones are around the media. You start then looking at smaller things like minifying and compressing your files, and just looking for all the dependencies that you're loading in and stripping out what you can. I've worked with Mark. Mark is like super efficient in what he builds. So Mark, I should imagine there's not much fat on your bones, to be honest, to pick off. I think, Mark, you're probably doing it right.
Yeah.
Maybe... yeah, sorry, go on.
So Ross just came in with a comment of Kulao and 34SP as alternatives.
Yes, 34SP, who do a lot for the WordPress community, are green.
Yeah. Wow. I can't read any more comments. Elliot, have you got any questions?
He's on mute.
His microphone is not working.
He's not on mute.
Rich.
Oh, he's lost his sound. Okay.
I found it very, very interesting that you're They're encouraging the Luddites among us to use more HTML, less video, less big images, and get back to the days when you would go to a database and find pure text, when the internet was the library of libraries.
I think that's a really great point. I think yes, I think things have become overcomplicated and whizzy and flashy, and I'm not sure from a user perspective, as a visitor to all these things, whether I feel that things are that much better for all the whizzy and flashiness. Marketers always say that great copy is what sells. It's not the images and the animations and the flashy stuff. It's as you're saying, like, you know, the text and the basics. So yeah, I think that's a good observation. I've not really thought about it like that, but I think that's exactly the direction.
The trend is reversing a little bit, isn't it? You see more and more websites very much focused on good UX, clear fonts, fast loading, simplicity, but just to get the message across. I see that more and more. So it's nice to see that the trend is reversing a little bit in just providing accessible content.
Isn't somebody? I'm sure I've read somewhere that someone somewhere is building like a static site generator for WordPress. Is that WooCommerce or Automatic? Someone? I'm not sure.
Static, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
My tongue.
So that'd be quite interesting.
I've been following. Sorry, Ronald, go on.
No, please go.
I was going to say I've been following their evolution very closely, very intently, because I think it's really, really interesting what they're doing. And I did have a play with the early prototype, but unfortunately, the early prototype wasn't really handling forms very well. And I don't know, I can't think of many websites that don't need contact forms. I think a lot has come on, has progressed with that. So turning your WordPress sites into these static HTML files so they can be served quickly. There's an awful lot of interesting stuff going on in that space. I'm personally not convinced it's quite ready yet, but Static just got loads and loads of investment, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like millions of dollars, pounds, pick a currency. I'm not really sure. So yeah, they're interesting, and I'm glad that we got to talk about them a little bit, because I think that's where we're going to go. So maybe, Mark, that's one for you to have a look at. If you were asking about what you could do next, I guess serve your site statically. That's probably the next one.
It's like going full circle. It's going back to 1999.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Hannah, can you just tell me again the meetup that you start to organize? That I didn't catch the name of. Is it Southwest Green
Tech Southwest?
Green Tech Southwest.
Yeah, we only had one meetup.
Get the order right.
Yeah, we've only had one meetup, and then the flu-y thing happened. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll get some more in.
Yeah. Where are you? Is that in Bristol?
That is in Bristol. Yeah, at the moment. But yeah, I hope maybe there'll be some more coming out. Yeah. More meetups of that sort of thing in the area. But yeah.
I think I have just one last question, just sort of more on a personal level. At what point in the past did you have a moment where you think, wow, this is my direction, calling, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to share with the world, and I can make a difference on that?
It's interesting how many people ask me that question, actually. It's I get asked that a lot. Actually, it was when I went to WordCamp in Belgrade. So what would that have been? 2018? I went to WordCamp Belgrade, and there wasn't, that I saw, a single thing on that WordCamp Europe agenda that was talking about the environment. And I just thought, heck, this is crazy, really? What's going on? And it was actually going to that where I sort of made a little commitment to myself in my head, and I was like, I wonder if I could start trying to help the WordPress community think a bit more environmentally. It's taken me a while to get there. And then WordCamp Europe in Berlin this year, I saw Jack Lennox give his talk. Last year, wasn't it? We're in 2020, not 2019. Oh, God. And yeah, Jack's talk, really, I was just like, right, yeah, I need to get on this. and gave me this rocket fuel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really good. Really good.
Still
Elliot
can't
is
hear
like-
it.
No.
Can't hear. Might be worth dropping out and dropping back in again.
Yeah. I think we might then sort of round up a little bit. Just quick round. If anybody has got any news, whether it's WordPress related or anything that they hear of Meetup online virtual, people in the comments, please add them. If you're planning on any virtual meetups in the next coming weeks or so, I think what we've seen tonight is fantastic. Lots of familiar faces. I mean names. Some unfamiliar. Maybe I do know you, but using the Twitter handle, sorry, I can't remember all of you. Tomorrow, you'll see a podcast coming out. It's a bit of self-promotion. Bob WP, who's familiar with him. He's an old-time. We have 2 Elliots.
Oh, we got 2 Elliots.
That's amazing.
Still can't hear you.
He's cracked it. He's able to be in 2 places at once. I need some of that, please.
He's 10 years in the WooCommerce business. Anyway, an interview with me on it is coming out tomorrow, so you might want to listen to my rambling to that. You'll see it on Twitter.
Maybe he'll come back.
Oh.
There was a
Nothing else
comment.
to say. Oh.
You what, sorry?
There was a comment, Hannah. Someone wanted to know more about your snowboarding.
Yeah, Leo. Yeah, Leo, it sounds like we should have a catch up. I can bore you to death.
Well, as long as it isn't waterboarding, that's fine.
We've had the flow.
Definitely not. Yeah. Just going back to that online meetups thing, I'm hoping that somebody is going to mention is it
WordSesh.
WordSesh? Thank you. Yeah, I'm a bit tired. My brain is starting to go.
Richard, can't remember his surname. He's such a nice guy. I met him a couple of months ago, and I spoke to him, and I recognized his voice, but I just couldn't make the link until he said it. It's like, of course, WordSesh, you're the one.
Absolutely. So that's happening next week. It's a fully online conference running over 2 days. And I had a look through all the topics they've got. It looks brilliant. Really, really good content.
Yeah, it's a very well executed thing. It's well worth tuning in for, and just have it running on the background if you can do it while doing some other work. You really get a lot out of it. Absolutely.
Hello.
Oh, Elliot.
Yeah.
You got me back.
Yeah.
It's like the Eurovision Song Contest.
Crazy.
Nil point. Elliot, 0 point.
I've had to switch back over to my monitor audio, which is weird, but so I might be like really boomy. But
I did tell you your mic was dodgy.
yeah, it was okay for a bit. I just dropped in and out, and something went wrong. But anyway, I think you managed to crack on without me, which is great. So
You don't need it.
me. No, exactly. I just wanted to say thank you to Hannah. Really, I have been listening to the conversation. There's no point me dipping in because I've kind of lost the audio. But I just wanted to say thank you to Hannah. Fantastic debut for our very first stream, and your very first stream, I believe. And I know how difficult it is looking at the comments. Just backstage looking at them and trying to figure out and trying to listen to your talk as well is quite a mean feat. So yeah, cracking, great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And if anybody would like some tips or some thoughts on what it's like being a presenter, if anyone's going to be doing the same thing, give me a shout. I've learned some things from this evening, so I'm happy to share my experience of doing it from this side with anybody that wants to talk about it. So just give me a shout.
I'm just looking at that last comment, yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah. Graham had a bit of an accident, I think, coming back from Leeds, was it? got run over by a bus, I believe. If someone could, yeah,
Oh.
Hope he's recovering well. And big shout out to Graham if you're watching. If you're not, and you're watching it and catch up or whatever, take care, Graham.
Get lost in. Yeah, definitely. Wow.
Yeah, I think we should send Graham lots of love. I could never do it. That's meant to be a heart. Yeah, there we go.
Not very clear.
No.
That's terrible.
We're sending that to Graham.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Trying to find an emoji heart, but I can't find one. So I think we can. I think what we're going to do now is just have like a little chat about stuff and future things, and if anyone can give any comments about how this has been for everybody, that'd be great. You can also give us a shout out on Twitter using our hashtag WPChelt, or obviously follow us on Twitter as well. And if you've got any handles that you want to give to anybody, Hannah, or are you happy that you've done that on the slides?
Yeah, I mean the slides are just full of stuff like that. If anybody wants to find me on Twitter, I'm HanOpcan, HANOPCAN.
Where does that name come from? I never understand it.
Yeah, like I have the world's most common name, Hannah Smith. Like,
right, so you just picked something randomly.
I did basically. There's at least 6 Hannah Smiths in my doctor's surgery. Whenever I go, I'm like, no, not that.
Third one.
So I came up with a name that was short, because all the good names are supposed to be short, aren't they? So
it works.
Opcan, HanOpcan. Yeah, it works.
Is that right? I put a comment on the stream. Is that right? HanOpcan. Yeah, cool. There's a great comment from Ross there. The technology works really well. That's good to hear. There's another one here. Great format. A touch distracting tonight, though. Not sure why, but you must have been doing something else. Double screening, I think they call that, don't they?
Well, I read that comment as perhaps feeling distracted by other things perhaps going on. That's how I read that comment. So maybe misread that. Yeah.
And on that note, I think we wish everybody well and to stay safe in the coming days and months. But so has anybody got anything they want to talk about in general?
No, not that I can think of.
What I wanted to do is just talk about the community and what was going on at the moment. I mean, there's lots of streaming and stuff going on, and I would highly recommend that people get involved, especially for remote workers. I think some of us kind of work remotely and we're kind of used to it, but we don't necessarily have that interaction with people. But in the current situation, I think these things are popping up, and I would like to mention WP and Up. They're doing a Zoom hangout on Fridays at 3 p.m. and I think they're going to talk about doing other stuff, but I think that's an amazing movement, and I got involved with it last Friday when we had kind of made the decision to pull the plug on the meetup, and it was really good. Although I didn't really interact much, I thought it's just a brilliant platform. There's lots of people there. You can kind of just dip in, listen, get involved if you want to, and it's just really good. And I think current climate, it's important for us all to make note of those and get involved with those.
So what was that, Elliot? Sorry, you were saying WP and Up are having like Zoom calls? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So on WP and Up, if you follow WP and Up on Twitter, if I pop their thing up, they usually drop a link, which is a Zoom link and it's basically a link scheduled for Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. I got the gist from Dan that the reason for doing that was to get the kind of stateside on board, because they kind of be waking up at that time. So, and I think there was about 15, 20 people there on Friday, which is great. 5 or 6 engaging, but people would just pop up and sort of say stuff, and it's just a really nice hour to take out of your day, I think, to just get involved with the community. I recognise lots of people. I don't know if they recognise me, but
on the WP and Up subject, they also have a virtual meetup on the 26th of March at 6:30 with 2 looks like really interesting speakers. Elegant Marketplace, can't remember his first name. Being your best self under pressure. And then another tag, Tristan G, productivity in copy creation, blogs, social media, and more. Seems all really relevant as well. So it's WPN up 26th of March at 6:30.
We'll try and get that out on a tweet or something. We'll look that up.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that sounds really good. Sorry.
For the future of how does everyone feel about the kind of streaming? Do you think you're going to get on board and get more interactive? Because I know that having spoken to Rich, before Friday, this is kind of your definitely your first experience of doing anything online or interacting.
Yeah.
Usually it's on the phone, but do you think you're going to get more involved with kind of online streaming?
Potentially.
You feel more comfortable with it?
Yeah, I still find it a bit weird. I don't know. I think it's just getting used to it. I think, and yeah, it's a whole new. I think I find public speaking hard enough, but this seems harder for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, it's just one of the things I need to practice at, I guess, and see what happens.
Well, you're almost public speaking, but you're actually seeing yourself public speak as well,
Yeah,
which is a bit weird. Yeah,
you can see your face. It's like public speaking into a mirror. It's a bit weird.
Yeah. How about you, Stillman?
I think that's where most public speakers start, speaking towards the mirror and feeling confident speaking to yourself. And then you might feel comfortable speaking with your partner or friends. And then it becomes a larger group of friends, as in the pub, and so on and so on. Everyone wants you to do well, so don't worry about it.
Good point, Stillman.
I think that's an excellent point. Very well made.
Yeah, I agree. And Ronald, I guess you now you're working at YITH, you do a lot more online stuff anyway, do you? Conference
I do,
calling?
yeah. So every day I have several calls now, but they're mostly one-on-one podcast. But here's another exclusive. I'm going to be one of the co-organizers for the WooCommerce London meetup. We've sort of started with that a couple of weeks ago, but because with all the events happening now, we are looking at bringing it online, but we are very, very early stages. So we are looking around, experimenting with different technologies. Well, not even experimenting yet. So we're just discovering what people are doing. So something like this for me to be on board is great experience. But the Zoom, for example, is another one where you can have loads of people come on board and have a say. But the London WooCommerce meetup hasn't been held for several years, so it's something that we will bring back to life, me and Lisa, together with Jonathan, who's in Seattle, and see how we get on with that. So that's probably news that will come out in the coming weeks.
Great, sounds awesome. Is that a public thing then?
The news or the WooCommerce meetup?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it would be public. Sorry, I think there was a question from somebody that threw me a little bit from Centrist, who was asking about, is that done on Zoom or what? That might be a question for Ronald.
That's for you, isn't it? I think this is talking about this.
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, it's.
You can answer that one if you want.
Who?
You.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, this is done on StreamYard, so it's easier if you just look up StreamYard. And again, a big shout out to Liam and Dale that put us onto this. I think it's a great little streaming thing for even for like group podcasts and stuff.
So. Mark is he's happy to do virtual talk. Mark is brilliant. I love all his talks at weekends.
Absolutely.
What's he going to offer? Something new? Something new or something you've done before? That's to Mark.
I think Mark's always got interesting stuff to talk about. So yeah, absolutely, Mark. We'll talk offline and we'll get you on board. We've got a few speakers planned, but definitely get you on board. That'd be great.
Fantastic.
And Richard, would you like to do your talk? Sorry, I shouldn't put you on the spot like that.
Potentially. I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying yes.
Yeah, that's cool. No, apologies for that. I didn't want to put you on the spot. When you're talking like in a group like this, you forget that actually there's lots of people watching. You can see in the top left over there, you can see the amount of people that are watching. Oh, I guess that's on YouTube and Periscope, or maybe just Periscope, I'm not sure. But you kind of forget that they're watching. And I think at one point it popped up to about 39 viewers.
Oh, if you hover over it, it says there's 9 on Periscope and 5 on YouTube.
Awesome.
Learning as we go along.
Awesome.
Winging it.
That's the only thing I do miss a little bit is the actual voice of this person asking a question, even if they sort of can tune in and say it. That would be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could do it on a Zoom platform or something. I think there's definitely scope for lots of things to happen at the moment. It's just all going to bubble up, and there's just lots of opportunities. Like tech, there's so much tech about. Just see what happens. So I don't know about you guys though. We are getting towards 9 o'clock-ish. I know it's kind of a bit of an early finish for a usual meetup because we usually hang out at the pub where we are. Yeah, we could have a virtual beer, but I don't really want to bore people with you need to kind of like splinter off into your couples and have little chats. Probably not the best format for that. But so if you guys are okay with it, unless you want to talk about anything else, are you happy to wrap up, or if you've got anything else you want to talk about?
There was a comment from Studio Crafted that said, I've been using custom meta boxes in my current WordPress project. It's been really powerful. And I'm curious to know what that is.
Mm.
You can't throw a comment in like that and then just let that go.
Yeah.
What a custom is that a plugin or a? I don't really know.
There's a custom meta box library. So it's a PHP library that you can hook in. But I think Human Made had their own library, which kind of turned into a bit of a plugin. But they then it wasn't maintained, or they stopped maintaining it. And then the guys over at Web Dev Studios, they kind of pointed them that way. And I think it might be that, which is a plugin, but you can also hook into the library separately through code. I don't know if Studio Crafted might want to elaborate on that, or maybe come on and do a talk.
Can I ask one more silly question? Like, what would you use it for? Is it metadata?
It's metadata. So all you get set metadata, or say, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's all the metadata per post.
Interesting. I'm always looking at new ways to do that better.
If it's the same plugin I'm thinking of, I'll post it to you, but maybe Studio Craft can dip in as well.
Seems my Laravel talk is much wanted, so maybe I'll have to break.
I was really looking forward to that, Rich, actually. I have to say, I think it's really interesting when people bring other things into the WordPress community. Like, I don't know much about Laravel. So yeah, I was really excited. No pressure, but I hope you will give it again at some point.
I've not given it yet. It would have been the first time, so
yeah.
Maybe next month, next week, or whatever schedule we'll sort something out. It'll come eventually.
I hope so. I'd really like to hear it. I think that'll be really interesting.
See, Jordan's after me now, so. and Stillman said the other day, so I don't think I've got any choice now. I've been bullied into it.
Oh no.
Surely not bullied.
No, we don't do bullying. Gently coaxing with a cup of tea or a beer or something. Come.
We like to encourage.
Yeah, you'll be awesome, Richard. You were last time. Every day, all of your talks are awesome, so it'll be good.
Don't know about that.
So yeah, I think Studio Crafted has just confirmed it's the CB library, which is the one I was thinking of. So
Jordan said he'd buy me a beer. It's getting better, is it? Any advances on a beer?
It would have to be a virtual beer.
You never know.
Oh, if that's the case, I'll buy a crate.
A crate?
Do it. Next one. Yeah.
So, is there any other things you want to talk about, or should we think about wrapping up? I think the general consensus, the comments from everybody has been really positive. So I'm really pleased about that. And thanks to everybody involved. It is a difficult, weird thing at the moment. And I know it's a one-way broadcast thing, but I think we've done okay. So well done well done to everybody. Well done.
Well done
Thank
to
you,
you,
Hannah.
Elliot, as well.
Virtual claps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just on that, Elliot, I think you have done really well because we made this decision as organizers we were talking about it since last Wednesday, Thursday, changed our mind Friday. Things started to change very rapidly with the advice that was given out. And then Elliot just got on with it and asked some advice from Leo, I think. And Friday night, it was ready to go with a quick practice run to do this. So much credit to you.
Yeah, well done, Elliot. You deserve a big pat on the back, definitely.
You're welcome, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's been fairly easy, to be honest, and obviously I wouldn't be able to do it without the support from everybody else. So I appreciate your help there. So thank you. It's not all just my way; it's a collective thing. I think that's the way we're all going at the moment. We all have to sort of work together on these things. So yeah.
I like the fact that there's the 5 of us here as well. So even it's not too one way. At least there's a mixture of people to see, and I hadn't expected that from this evening to enjoy that so much, or for that to work so well. And I have to say, for me, that's been great. I know I can't see everyone that's watching and streaming, but it's lovely to see the 4 of you, and I feel like it's nice interaction actually.
Yeah, I think you can have up to 6 actually, and also I think you can have people backstage, so you can. I'm not sure about that, but so that would be a good way.
Yeah, you can bring people in and out to ask a question and line them up.
Yeah, if Leo's around, maybe he could just confirm that because he's the expert on this platform, I think, but maybe not.
But yeah, I like that. For me, that is a really interesting learning point from tonight, and I think that element of it has worked very well. I can't comment on what it was like to watch the speaker.
Could have been rubbish. Absolutely terrible.
It probably was.
Not enough snowboard chat, I think, was one of the comments that came up to the surface.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm glad your dog made an appearance as well, that Lily was there. It's the golden rule. And
I'm mortified though. I told you I slipped up the last talk I did. I forgot to put a Lily picture in. So I was like, oh, no, disaster.
Leo's confirmed it is 6, so maybe we can have Lily on
I could just put some peanut butter on one of the screens and she can just sit there and lick it, and she'll stay still and you'll be able to see her.
Is that for Lily or for you?
For
Is this
Lily.
information we shouldn't be knowing about?
I thought we were still talking about Leo. No.
Okay, that's great. I think before we get ourselves into trouble and break the code of conduct, we probably should wrap it up there. Do you not think? So
very wise.
I'm gonna say my goodbyes. If you'd like to say your goodbyes one by one, then I will end the broadcast. And just final thank you to everybody watching and everybody that's been involved. You've been awesome. Thanks very much. It's a bye from me.
Thank you very much.
Bye as well. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.